Perhaps the most controversial feature of Card Ladder is our predictive pricing. So let's talk about it. Let's figure out what it is, and let's figure out what it isn't. Before I start, I'd like to offer a quick preface. Certain ethical values are important to me. Those values are integrity, transparency, intellectual rigor, and humility. I keep them in the front of my mind at all times, and they are super important to me when it comes to a project like Card Ladder. Okay, so let's talk about predictive pricing. And to do that, let's start with a basic question. And it's a question that goes well beyond sports cards. It's a question that has animated debate in academic disciplines for many, many years. And that question is, can you predict human behavior? And the answer to that question, generally speaking, is no. To get consistently accurate predictions, you probably need to know many, if not all, of the relevant variables. And simply put, there are just too many unknowables, most of the time, when it comes to human action. And even if you had all of the variables, you still have to account for free will, which is the belief that to some extent, humans can escape the cause and effect chain that would otherwise make their behavior entirely predictable. So the answer is no. In many, many instances, you probably cannot predict human behavior. The point of our predictive pricing is not to always make accurate predictions. We cannot do that. I believe that probably no one can do that. The point is to give you a little more information that might be helpful when you try to determine what a card is worth. And to that end, we'll tell you exactly how we arrived at our conclusion. We spell out all of our math and all of our assumptions. If this was a math test, we've shown our work. It's up to you to figure out how much weight to give the prediction, if any at all. Anyone can do what we're doing. Some people already do it in their heads. What Card Ladder does is it performs these calculations for you and has them readily available, so that you don't have to pull up a spreadsheet or a notebook and spend time figuring it out for yourself. So, let's take a look at an example of how it works. 3 weeks ago, a friend came to me and asked me if Card Ladder could predict the ending price of a super rare card that was currently at auction. The card was the 1998 Metal Universe Precious Metal Gems Kobe Bryant, commonly referred to as Kobe's Gold PMG, ungraded. The last time an ungraded copy had sold at auction was almost 5 years ago, and I thought, what a great opportunity to test our approach. So I said, sure. Okay, so how do we go about making such a prediction? I'm going to walk you through the whole thing. The very first step is to research and create the all-time sales history of the card that we want to predict, which we did for the Kobe Gold PMG. The next step is to pick a comp, and then build its all-time sales history too. And this is where judgment starts to come into play. The comp needs to be a card that has sold recently, and that we can use as a proxy for the growth of the card that we're trying to price. So, in this instance, I looked at a few different cards to potentially use as the comp. I chose the 1998 Metal Universe base version of the Kobe Bryant Gold PMG in a PSA 10 slab. There's lots of reasons why this card made sense to me to be the comp, but there also might be better choices out there. Like I said, this is where judgment factors in. But, generally speaking from experience, pricing 90s grails has worked out okay when using the base PSA 10 version of the card as a comp. The main reason for that, I think, is because 90s grails and their high-grade counterparts have developed similarly enthusiastic collector bases over the past few years. So, with the comp in hand, the next step is to identify historically correlated multipliers. Okay, I know that's a mouthful, but it's actually a pretty simple concept. I just use our compare tool to map out the all-time sales history of both cards on the same graph. And then I look for instances where both cards sold during a similar time frame. And as you can see from the graph, one such instance happened in 2009. On September 6th, a raw copy of Kobe's Gold PMG sold for $374, and on August 24th, just 2 weeks earlier, a PSA 10 copy of the base sold for $7.50. So just divide $374 by $7.50, and the multiplier between the two sales is 49.87. And I also really like to use the most recent sale to create a multiplier, which in this case was an auction that closed at $1,852 on August 8th, 2015. The problem is that the two nearest sales of the base PSA 10 were from a year later and 5 years earlier. The one from a year later sold for $56.24, and the one from 5 years earlier was that $7.50 sale. So I wrote a quick formula that generated a weighted average of those two sales. And the result was a price estimate of $50.11 for the base PSA 10 in August of 2015. From there, just divide $1,852 by $50.11, and now we have a second multiplier of 36.96. Finally, take the average of those two multipliers that we generated, which is 43.415, and now we have a final multiplier that we'll use to make a prediction. So, now we're on the home stretch. Card Ladder takes the multiplier and applies it to the current value of the base PSA 10 to give us a prediction of the value of the Kobe Gold PMG. And we can see that the quote-unquote current value of the Kobe base PSA 10 is $462.50, the average of two sales that occurred on May 7th, 2020, which is the last time the card sold. So simply multiply 43.415 times $462.50, and you get $20,079.44. And boom, there is Card Ladder's prediction. Now, 2 weeks ago on June 1st, 2020, the Kobe Gold PMG's eBay auction ended. It closed for $18,869, which means Card Ladder's prediction was 94% accurate. Now, of course, this is the smallest sample size possible. This is one prediction. We need to build a much, much larger sample size over the course of the coming months and years before we begin to make conclusions about the reliability of our methodology. So we need to be patient, and we need to be skeptical, and always look for ways that we might be able to improve. I also understand that you are seeing me walk through these steps after the fact. And a skeptic would rightly say, how do we know that Card Ladder didn't just cherry pick this card after the auction ended because the multiplier method just so happened to work on it? How do we know that Card Ladder didn't cherry pick specific multipliers after the auction ended because the multipliers just so happened to work, but maybe others wouldn't? These are exactly the type of questions that you should ask of us and of anyone disclosing prediction results. Now, to address the skeptics' questions, of course we didn't do that. For one, we offered this prediction in advance, of course, to the collector who asked for it, and he can verify that the prediction was offered before the auction concluded. Now, did our prediction influence what the card sold for? Well, I know the collector who asked for it did not win the auction, but did it somehow make its way to other people? And did they base their bids on it? It's possible. And it could have influenced the outcome, in which case the prediction is not very impressive. One of the reasons for this video, which we'll get to a little bit more later, is to make the case that people should not base their bidding solely on any predicted value of any card, whether it's what someone writes on Instagram, or it's modeling of the type that we're doing here, or it's discussed in private chats with friends. In my opinion, it's probably wise to take a holistic approach, considering all relevant factors, such as recent sales, market conditions, and so forth. Okay, and my second reply to the skeptic is that if our method doesn't work, we'll end up looking silly. Now, I've looked silly at times over the course of my life, but it was done in earnest. I would never put my intellectual credibility on the line based on a methodology that I secretly knew didn't work. My integrity matters too much to me to do that. I'm cautious, I'm even apprehensive about sharing our attempt at predictive pricing because I don't want to look silly and offer a poor prediction. But it will happen from time to time, just hopefully not with too much frequency, which is why I'm spelling out our method in full detail so that it's crystal clear exactly how it works. And so when there's a bad prediction, which there will be, we can inspect the method and maybe find out where it went wrong. I'm guessing people more clever than me will end up watching this video, finding flaws in our approach, finding ways that we could improve our method, and hopefully they will reach out and let me know about them. Let's take a look at a second card that Card Ladder predicted that worked out pretty well. I'll walk through this one more quickly since you already know the basics of how this process works. Remember, all of our math and assumptions are spelled out for any prediction that we make in the card's profile, so you can always scrutinize our methodology whenever you'd like. So, a high-profile auction of LeBron's Topps Chrome Refractor rookie, PSA 10, ended on June 4th. This became a notorious auction because it was revealed that an eBay user was trolling or shilling the auction. Now, fortunately, they were called out on Instagram, and you can see in the card's eBay bid history that the bogus bid was canceled 5 days before the auction ended. Even still, this auction was a difficult one to predict because a copy of the card was purchased via the Buy It Now option for a penny shy of $55,000 according to eBay, 6 days before this auction ended. And that price was way higher than what our prediction was telling us the price should have been. So I was really intrigued to see how Card Ladder would fare in predicting this card, but at open auction. Using LeBron's Topps Chrome rookie card in a PSA 10 slab as the comp to predict the value of his Topps Chrome Refractor PSA 10, we generated an average historically correlated multiplier of 5.345. We multiplied that by $8,125.33, which was the quote-unquote current value of the card on June 3rd, the day before the Refractor PSA 10 auction ended, to get a predicted value for the Refractor PSA 10 of $43,429.89. The auction closed on June 4th at $42,000, which means Card Ladder's prediction was 96.7% accurate. Now, of course, the same skepticism and caveats apply to this prediction as we discussed earlier. We're telling you about this prediction after the fact. It was shared with a small group in advance, and they could have influenced the result. You should be skeptical, you should be critical, and especially in an endeavor like this, you should have a very, very high standard and not draw any conclusions from these two predictions I've shown you. The sample size is way too small. Plus, these two predictions went well, but there's others that haven't gone as well, and I'll tell you about one of those a little bit later in the video. I'm telling you about this one so that you can see once more how it works, so that when you're browsing Card Ladder, you understand exactly what predicted value means. So there are two more predictions that I want to show you. The first is the most accurate prediction we've ever made, and then I also want to show you a failed prediction too. But before we do that, I think we can now start to think about explanations for why predictions using multipliers might work. And that's an important question in any predictive inquiry. What story can we tell to help us understand why this method works? I believe that when it does work, it works because multipliers capture how people in the hobby think about cards. Let me give a really basic and a probably pretty controversial example. We've all heard about copies of Zion's National Treasures rookie patch autograph out of 99, which is Zion's most high-profile rookie card probably, selling for astronomically high prices these last few days. And how do collectors respond to this news? Well, some Luka collectors will say, hey, if Zion's RPA is worth $50,000, then Luka's RPA must be worth at least that much too. Luka's about the same age, he's got more career accomplishments, he's on a better team right now, his stats are better, etc. Sure, Zion is a more electric player to watch, but Luka makes up for that in other ways. So, therefore, Luka's prices should be even with Zion. Okay, so that's a simplified version of the reasoning I've actually witnessed Luka collectors perform. And then LeBron collectors will say, if Zion is worth $50,000 and he hasn't accomplished anything yet, then LeBron's RPA must be worth, 6, 7, 8 times as much as Zion. LeBron has cemented himself as a GOAT, and he's still adding to his legacy. Okay, and that's a simplified version of the reasoning LeBron collectors might engage in. And on a bigger scale, this sort of reasoning trickles down to collectors of many different players, and even across sports. It goes something like this. Well, if Zion is worth this much, then Ja Morant should be half that, Trae Young should be half that, Patrick Mahomes should be in line with that, etc. The point is that now what people are willing to pay for non-Zion cards has been impacted by what they believe the relationship should be between Zion's cards and other players' cards. This is just a simple example of how multiplier logic is pervasive in the hobby. One player's card values are constantly being understood as multiples of another player's card values. Now, I would not normally rely on this method to predict prices. And why not? Well, Let's say, God forbid, Zion has a bad season and his prices decline. Luka and LeBron collectors are probably not going to become less willing to continue to spend big money on their guy just because Zion prices went down. So Zion can help set a new ceiling for guys like Luka and LeBron, but he probably won't drag their values down much if his values go down. Now, is that good reasoning? Maybe not, but that seems to be how it works. So the multiplier logic isn't always operational across players. It only works in specific instances, and it's extremely inconsistent. The point of this example is just to give you a really obvious way that multipliers influence how we think about card prices. Collectors tend to think in terms of multipliers. Now let me give another example of how we use the multiplier thought process in the hobby. There is a hierarchy of Michael Jordan cards. When a really rare, really expensive Jordan card sells, it tends to bring up the value of the lower ones too. Why? The way it seems to work is, if lots of Jordan collectors see a high-profile Jordan card double in value, they become willing to spend more money on other Jordan cards too. The relationship among cards in the Jordan card hierarchy is another example of multiplier logic. The price ratios among the key Jordan cards can be pretty consistent. Using caution, using good judgment, there might be some predictive value in relying on historical multipliers among Jordan cards to predict the value of some Jordan cards. But, in my opinion, probably the most reliable example of multiplier logic, and I use the word reliable pretty loosely here, is using the value of a base card to predict the value of some of its rarer parallels, which is exactly what we did to predict the Kobe Gold PMG and the LeBron Topps Chrome Rookie Refractor. Now, assuming this works, why does this work? And it's probably because it's a really easy mental shortcut that makes intuitive sense. So for example, if you look across the last few years, LeBron's Topps Chrome Refractor Rookie in a PSA 10 slab has pretty reliably sold for roughly 5 times the value of the base version in a PSA 10 slab. It just requires a quick and simple calculation for bidders to figure out that the 5 times multiplier in their heads and apply it. Of course, multipliers can change over time, especially when prices get higher. Base cards can begin to outpace refractors in terms of rate of growth, and vice versa, which is why we're constantly reevaluating our multipliers and adding new ones when new sales get recorded. It's a highly imperfect method, no doubt about it, but it's probably the best one we've got in my view. And you need to keep in mind when browsing Card Ladder that we might adjust a multiplier, and a card in your collection might see its predictive value go up or down accordingly. So please be prepared for that. And of course, take predicted values very lightly. Their main function is providing a fun, different way of assessing a card's possible value. To be sure, the shortcomings of predicting value become even more pronounced when we try to predict certain cards. So for example, what is a good comp that we could use to estimate the rate of growth for a rookie patch autograph out of 99? There isn't a more common variation of the card, so that's ruled out. I think the best we might be able to do is use the refractor or the silver parallel of the player's key chrome or Prizm rookie card as the comp. And this is clearly fraught with even more issues than normal. The refractor or the silver exists in a much lower price range than the rookie patch autograph, which means that it's probably got a much broader pool of potential buyers, and its price can grow more rapidly than the much more expensive RPA. Needless to say, RPA predictions should be treated with maximal skepticism. The same goes for other ultra-rare high-dollar cards like one-of-ones and gold parallels and so forth. These are inherently much tougher to predict, and prediction is already extremely tough and probably typically unreliable to begin with. It's a judgment call as to whether we should even issue predictions for these super rare cards. In the event that we do, they should be treated with extreme caution. They are fun to think about, and it's probably the best price estimate that we can deliver, which isn't saying that much. So they should be treated as fun and highly speculative, of course. To be crystal clear, predictive pricing should not be used as a substitute for market value on any card. There will be some instances, like with the Kobe Gold PMG, where the last sale is from 5 years ago, And in situations like that, our predicted price will very likely be closer to an accurate estimate of the card's market value than the 5-year-old prior sale. But that's not a huge accomplishment. You don't need a predictive algorithm to tell you that Kobe's cards have gone up over the last 5 years. The fact of the matter is, whether you're looking at prior sales, a predictive algorithm, or just going with your gut, trying to determine the market value of a card is an imperfect art. None of the options are great. The only way to truly know what a card will sell for is to wait and see what someone ends up paying for it. Our goal is only to capture another way of thinking about how to estimate the market value of a card, which is by using historically correlated multipliers. At best, it's just another tool in the collector's tool belt. So, with that said, let me make it clear that plenty of cards will never receive a predicted value. Probably because they just don't have a good comp card available. And the ones that do should be treated with skepticism, with caution, and bottom line, they should be seen as entertainment and a fun intellectual challenge, a research project, rather than as any sort of definitive statement on market value. All right, so let's take a look at the final good prediction that I want to show you today, before I show you a bad one. One of the more liquid cards on the sports card market is the 2018 Prizm Silver PSA 10 Luka Doncic rookie card. Its base variant is probably the most liquid card on the market right now. Currently, we use 3 historically correlated multipliers tied to the base PSA 10 to predict the Prizm Silver PSA 10 value. On June 12th, just 2 days ago, Card Ladder predicted that the value of the Silver Prizm Luka PSA 10 was $2,965.87. The most recent sale was for $2,750 from 2 days earlier. So the difference between the last sale and the prediction was $215.87. It's not huge. It's only a difference of 8%. But it's also bigger than a rounding error. So on June 12th, 5 Silver Prizm PSA 10 Luka rookie cards sold. The average price was $2,963.33, which is only $2.54 off from its predicted value of $2,965.87. In other words, the ladder's prediction was 99.91% accurate. I highly doubt we'll ever see that accurate of a prediction again. I'm mostly sharing this one with you because it's fun. Practically speaking, what it reflects is that the base value went up a few percentage points and the silver followed suit. It's certainly not rocket science. Any collector could have easily made a similarly accurate prediction, doing some quick math in their head. Here's the final prediction I want to tell you about. Card Ladder swung and missed big time on this one. It's the Michael Jordan 1997 High Voltage 500 Insert Parallel. A copy of this one sold on June 3rd for $6,170, and our prediction missed the mark big time. Using 2 historically correlated multipliers of 2 different slabs of the same card, the base high voltage Jordan insert in a BGS 9 case, and the base high voltage Jordan insert in a PSA 10 case, Card Ladder predicted that this auction would end at $7,939.27. Card Ladder was only 77.7% accurate here because, like I said, the card sold for only $6,170 at auction. Perhaps fitting that the prediction was almost 23% inaccurate. So, did we use the wrong comp card? Should we have included more historical multipliers into the averages? Is the card even predictable? Or maybe, if we ran the auction again today, would it have gotten closer to Card Ladder's prediction? These are all valid questions, and it speaks to the inherent difficulty in predicting card values. And it also serves as a warning and a cautionary tale. Predicted values can and will, at times, be off the mark. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you've made it this far, you're probably just as big of a card nerd as I am. I appreciate feedback, comments, criticism. Our humble attempt at predictive pricing is nascent, evolving, flawed, and probably has a lot of room for improvement. But it's also a lot of fun, and that's how, at the end of the day, it should be seen. It's a fun way to think about the hobby. And the hobby should always come back to being fun. If we're not having fun, we're doing something wrong. And if nerding out like this isn't fun to you, I get it. Moreover, I can obviously see why predictive pricing is going to rub some people the wrong way, and I respect that. I appreciate you hearing me out. Thank you for listening.